Welcome to my channel. Here, I don't just speak, but I invite you to think. Throughout my videos, I've questioned the deepest held beliefs, from philosophy, the dynamics of religion and faith, to personal identity. I ventured into the controversial because I know that only in honest, critical confrontation do we grow. My voice is a search for truth, unafraid of what is difficult. If you join this community today, you don't just watch, but you engage. Together, we open the door to a courageous dialogue, one that transforms us. Subscribe, share, and let's keep questioning, growing, and seeking truth together. Well, hello, everybody. So nice to see you as always. Really excited about today's show. We're going to be talking to our co-host, our monthly co-host, JonnyB, going over more failed prophecies. JonnyB and I think, are on to our sixth series in our sixth episode in this series, maybe even seventh. And so far, we have found exactly 0 fulfilled prophecies that Jesus fulfilled from the Old Testament. So it seems like Christians make the claim that there's all these prophecies that Jesus fulfilled from the Old Testament, and JonnyB and I are unable to find a single one. What's really interesting to me is that I have had no Christians come and try to defend these prophecies, right? I think that's because Johnny has laid out such a good, clear argument. It's irrefutable. The evidence is demonstrable, and Johnny's done a really good job of laying out the case for that. Before we get into all that, I just want to go over a couple of things really fast. I want to, talk about a little bit of upcoming events, some housekeeping here. I have a big month this month. It's only like, I think we're in the first week. We are, because we do this the first Sunday of every month. On Wednesday, I did a show with Claire about the nature and purpose of religion. And I wouldn't let her do it on my channel because some things she said last time she was here were unacceptable. And I told her that she owes everyone in my chat an apology, and 2, I need to put on a little bit of a hiatus before I can bring her up here to make sure that she's not going to say something that's offensive, like she said last time. So I did want to have the conversation, though, because you guys know that religion can be problematic. So I did it on her channel, and she didn't say anything offensive. Actually, she was very polite and on her best behavior. I got to give the sister credit for that, and I'm really grateful for that. So I appreciate her for that. And it was a good conversation. I did tell her that the Abrahamic God does not exist. And she didn't call me a racist or Islamophobe for saying that this time, which was progress for her. And we had a good conversation about it. So she had some objections to that claim, and I was able to basically refute her objections, citing the fact that there's no evidence, or the arguments she's making just aren't leading to sound conclusions. And we've heard those arguments before, but I did that on Wednesday. Yesterday, we did the fundraiser event for the Ark Protest. That was a huge success. And I'm going to just give a quick shout out to some people here in a minute for that. Talk a little bit about how that event went, but that was excellent. Joe from the Kentucky Atheist hosted it. I co-hosted, and there were a lot of great speakers there. Godless Granny showed up. Godless Engineer showed up. Noah showed up. Kelly showed up. Who else? Detroit Atheist Queen was in the chat. Diesel was there. Oh my goodness. Lil of All Trades was there. I feel like I'm forgetting some names. I know I'm forgetting some names, and I do apologize. There's so much was going on. Robin, of course, showed up. There's so many people that were involved in that, but that was an incredible event. Anyway, so I did that yesterday. It was very busy for me. And then today I'm obviously doing this show. I normally don't have time to do 4 shows in a week, obviously. And so this has just been a crazy week for me. Next week is going to be crazy as well. On Saturday the 13th, I have a very special guest coming, Andy. He goes by Andy Hotlin or something like that. I'm sure a lot of you know him, especially on like Async. He's there. I've seen him around other channels. He actually pops into A's Philosophy channel sometimes to debate there. Andy is a very nice brother. but he's also very smart, and he knows his ancient history really well, especially when it comes to the development of Canaanite pantheon, Ugaritic text, and the pantheon of gods there, the Yahweh development. And so we're going to be talking about Yahweh, Asherah, the Baal cycle, and things of that nature. And I'm really looking forward to that conversation, because ancient history is why I started studying this stuff in the first place years ago, because of my love for ancient history. So I would say for me personally, the Persian period is actually my favorite period in history to study. There's just so much about, the history between the 6th and the third century, in the first millennium before the Common Era, with the Persian period, just after what people refer to as the Babylonian exile. Fascinating period of history. But Andy and I will be getting into that on Saturday. And then Sunday, we have a very important show. I have a lineup of guests that are going to come talk about their deconversions. I want to start doing more to highlight what's called RTS. It stands for Religious Trauma Syndrome. Most people who are skeptics, atheists, agnostics, whatever, are deconstructed from organized religion. And RTS is a very serious thing that people have to go through and deal with. There's so much that's tied to these beliefs. When you're tied to an organized religion, it affects so much of your life, your family, friends, your in-group, your sometimes employment, so on and so forth. The ideas that you are raised to believe, to distrust science, right? This is where we get flat earthers from, anti-vaxxers from, evolution deniers from, so on and so forth. And it really does a lot of damage to people. And so when you leave that and you free yourself from that cult, you have to basically rebuild your life from the ground up, right? Well, who can you trust? Who can you not trust? And what kind of information is really reliable? How do you learn to think critically? And so we're going to have a panel of speakers who are going to share their own personal experiences of what they went through deconstruction. And I'm really grateful to those people, because some of these stories are heartbreaking, right? And it's, like I said, it's they call it religious trauma syndrome for a reason, because it's traumatic. And so I'm looking forward to that, to next Sunday for that. The Sunday after that, the following Sunday, I've got Robin coming to talk about his very, I'll use the word innovative, economic system. He calls it social prosperity charter. It sounds a lot like just socialism to me. And he insists that it's completely different, but it'll be really interesting for those of you who follow my channel that get into politics and economics. Robin has a presentation today. We're going to get into a discussion about this social prosperity charter and how he thinks he's got a better economic system that he wants to convince the world that is more productive than communism, socialism, or capitalism. On the 21st, which is a Saturday, I'm actually, oh no, I just said that. So 27th, which is Saturday, I'm speaking to another PhD scholar. We're going to be talking about secular morality, and I'm really looking forward to that conversation. Then 28th, that Sunday, I'll be talking to Tavo, Dr. Tavo Sanavri. So we've got a couple PhD scholars we're talking to this month, and it'll be a pretty busy month for me. So I do want to talk, just touch on the fundraiser event yesterday. Our goal, excuse me, I think Joe told me, Joe, the Kentucky atheist, I think he told me that the goal was to raise $1,000 that they needed to meet the rest of their needs for the protest. This is for the Ark Encounter Protest. It's happening in Kentucky, mid-July. This is the 10-year anniversary, so it's a big deal. And we planned on maybe doing a 4 to 5 hour stream in hopes that we could raise $1,000 in that time period. And we raised the first $1,000 within the first hour, basically. And I think that we ended up stopping after 2 hours because he had exceeded his goal and we were all getting tired. And so it was such a huge success. I can't believe that we raised, I think he said the final number was around $1,400 or something like that, $1,400 that they were able to raise. So we really exceeded the goal, and that's really great because that is a really important event. And in that, I want to highlight and just give a shout out to the people who donated. And if I'm missing anybody's name on this list, please get a hold of me and let me know, and I will be sure to get you a shout out next time. And also, a lot of people on this list, I don't know if you actually have YouTube channels or not, but if you do, get a hold of me and I will add a link to your YouTube channel to this description of the video. And I just want to start by thanking Bionic Latino. He goes now by Bionic with a number, and then I think it's Bionic Chris at this point. but we all know Chris. He comes and joins us on the panel all the time. He was actually the first person who donated through the PayPal through my channel a few months ago when I first started promoting this event. I want to thank Lil of All Trades for her donation. Detroit Atheist Queen, I'm sure we all know her. Godless Granny donated. Tony, actually this was Titan Uranus, and he donated. Deviant Outcast donated. Someone in Time donated. Aunt Jer, I'm sure many of us know Aunt Jer donated. Limited Light donated. Big Bad Mama donated. Dade Murphy, he donated. I know I've seen him around a few different places, Captive Death channel, Joe's channel, etc. And so Dade, he donated. Arch Radish, if I'm saying that correctly. I'm sorry if I'm butchering any of these names, by the way. Donated. Async Network donated twice. I want to give a big shout out to Async Network because not only did they donate twice during this event, but they actually let me go onto their channel a couple times and promote the event. And that's big because, everybody's competing for views and subs and all that stuff. So you have somebody let me go on their channel and promote an event that's happening on somebody else's channel. That in and of itself was huge. And for them to stop by, that's Gretchen and DJ Arpy, for those two people to stop by and make two separate donations was really, really nice. April, I know there's more to this person's name, and I was trying to keep up with all the donations, so I just wrote down April, but I'm sorry. So April, please let me know what the rest of your name is here. Thank you for your donation. And the biggest thanks of all goes to Joe, the Kentucky Atheist, right? Because he's organizing this, he's putting all this together. It's a tremendous amount of work, and he's doing it all. He's volunteering his time. He's not making any money off of this event, right? All proceeds go to the protest itself. So I want to give a big shout out to Joe, the Kentucky Atheist, for all the work, the hours and hours that he's put into this. Actually, I believe it's Jess, How to Rule an Asteroid, also donated artwork and stuff like that. So a lot of people, and then I should say the biggest shout out goes to the community, the people who are supporting this, right? The people who are going to make the protest. You really get the biggest shout out. So I want to say thank you for that. And speaking of donations, Deconverted Man put me in touch with this amazing artist that I want to share what she donated here. This great song. It's called The Hollowed Out Ark. And let me play this song for you that she donated for the event itself. This is incredible.
Gruffer wood and fiberglass skin, where the logic ends and the tales begin. Measure up the cubits by a modern hand, built on a foundation of shifting sand. They say the tigers didn't have their claws, trading physics for some holy laws. But the tax breaks keep the dream alive, while the real world struggles to survive. Don't call it a museum, it's a monument to God. There's no truth inside the timber of this hollowed out ark. Hollowed out ark. Hollowed out ark. The dinosaurs are wearing saddles now, next to the goats and a grazing cow. A theater of the grand absurd, to fit the limits of a literal word. Ignore the strata and the canyon wall, everything started after the fall. They sell the tickets at a heavy price to see a pair of every wooden vase. Don't call it a museum, inside the timber of this hollowed out ark. Hollowed out ark. Hollowed out ark. Reason is a leak they can't quite plug, sweeping for 1 billion years under the rug. Curiosity is locked behind a gate, while they decorate the myths with weight. Don't call it a museum, it's a monument to God. There's no truth inside the timber of this hollow new rock. Hollow new rock. Hollow new rock. Hollow new rock.
That was Nazarene. That young lady is so talented. And the nice thing about that is, let me pull this off here. Oh, there we go. The nice thing about that is that she does stuff with a real band, a live band, actually. Now, she also works with Deconverted Man, and they do some other stuff together. I think he puts her lyrics to AI, and that's always very creative as well. So, yeah, check out that lady's channel, Nazarene. I've got her linked in the description. And speaking of people that I've got linked in the description and people's channels who I support, BS Lewis just put out a new video. So for those of you who know I'm talking about BS Lewis, I always try to get a link to his channel in my description because support his effort. He has come out with a new video. It's always a treat. So check his video out. Okay, now I think that's all the housekeeping. So let me bring up our co-host. Let me fix my screen here. Where is he at? Ah, there we go. JonnyB, why don't you tell everybody what you've been up to with your TikTok channel, how things have been going, and then I'll bring up the screen for you for the slideshow.
Hi, everyone. My name is Johnny. For anyone who might not know me, I'm an ex-Christian atheist. I'm not a Christian anymore. Recently, I've been doing my TikTok lives where I bring up guests and we talk about a variety of different topics like the Bible is not true, Bible is BS, things like that. You know, Jesus was not the Messiah, prove me wrong, things like that. Just a bunch of various different topics, and then we get guests up and we try to have good conversations, but unfortunately a lot of the time the guests are not the nicest. But you know what, it is just how it is. So I also have a YouTube channel where I repost clips from my TikTok lives, the ones that I think are most notable and worth watching. And yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing.
1 second here, I'm stumbling through this. Oh, that's what I needed. Okay, there we go. Okay, let me make sure I got the right one. Yes, okay. Add this to the stage. Okay, so we'll be on slide number 1. Let me pull this up here. Okay, so we're going to be talking today about Matthew chapter 2 and how this relates to Hosea chapter 11. Johnny, why don't you go ahead and get into your first slide?
First, show the slide. I want everybody to see the first slide. It's a funny one. Why half of Hosea 11 verse 1 is not about Jesus? Failed Prophecy Series episode 5. It actually might be episode 6. I have a hard time keeping track, but yeah.
You could be right. I think I can't remember because I know we did contradictions, Bible contradictions on one of these episodes, and we should do another one of those because I never really got into my list of contradictions, and so I've got quite a few to highlight. So maybe we should do that next month and then go back into failed prophecies.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Okay, so now the other slide 1.
So what does Matthew 2:13-15 claim? It says, "Now after they had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, 'Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him.' Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, 'Out of Egypt I have called my son.'" Matthew 2:13-15 claims that an angel of the Lord warned Joseph to flee to Egypt because King Herod the Great was coming to find Jesus so he could kill him, and that they remained there until the death of Herod. The author claims that this was done to fulfill a prophecy, "Out of Egypt I've called my son." But where does the prophecy actually come from?
You want me to move into the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll say Hosea 11, verse 1. This to me really demonstrates that the author of Matthew was willing to straight up lie and make stuff up to serve his Jesus agenda, not because he's just claiming a prophecy was fulfilled here, but because he's claiming that half of a sentence was somehow a prophecy that was fulfilled here. Half of a sentence. The full sentence is, "When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son." This is about the Exodus. The entire verse tells you who the son is. It's Israel. God says that when Israel was a child, he loved him and out of Egypt and called him out of Egypt, a reference to God bringing them out of the Exodus. Furthermore, there's more context to this passage, and it's not even a prophecy. Next page, please. Hosea 11, verse 1-7. "When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. The more I called them, the more they went from me. They kept sacrificing to the Baals and offering incense to idols. Yet it was I who taught Ephraim to walk. I took them up in my arms, but they did not know that I healed them. I led them with cords of human kindness, with bands of love. I was to them like those who lift infants to their cheeks. I bent down to them and fed them. They shall return to the land of Egypt, and Assyria shall be their king, because they have refused to return to me. The sword rages in their cities. It consumes their oracle, priests, and devours because of their schemes. My people are bent on turning away from me. To the Most High they call, but he does not raise them up at all." Here, God, through the prophet, is giving a recount of history. He says that he brought the Israelites out of Egypt, but the more he called them, the more they went astray, sacrificing to the Baals and making offerings to idols. So as a result, he says he's going to send them back to Egypt, and Assyria will be their king. He's planning to punish them because of their idolatry. Next page, please. "How can I give you up, Ephraim? How can I hand you over, O Israel? How can I make you like Admah? How can I treat you like Zeboim? My heart recoils within me, my compassion grows warm and tender. I will not execute my fierce anger. I will not again destroy Ephraim, for I am God and no mortal, the Holy One in your midst, and I will not come in wrath." Hosea 11, 8-9. Even though the Israelites were sinful and God is going to punish them, he decides not to wipe them out completely. Admah and Zeboim are cities located near Sodom and Gomorrah that were completely destroyed in Genesis 19. He's saying that although he wiped out Admah and Zeboim, he will not do the same to the Israelites. Next page, please.
That's the last slide.
Oh, was it? Okay. Yeah. I mean, this was a short one.
Yeah.
But like just for anyone watching, like this to me really demonstrates that the author of Matthew was grasping at anything he could find. He literally took half of a sentence out of an entire chapter, half of a sentence out of an entire chapter, half of the first verse, half of a sentence in the first verse, to make the claim that this was a prophecy that Jesus fulfilled. That's grasping at straws right there.
Yeah, the problem is, so Hosea is actually one of the oldest complete books written in the Jewish Bible, right? Tanakh. And so you got Amos is probably the oldest, and it's written right at the end of the 9th century, beginning of 8th century. Then after Amos, you've got probably first Isaiah, which of course we talked about that before. That's chapters 1-39, I believe. Because remember, Isaiah is written in 3 parts. And so it's not just actually, even though it's put together as one book, it's actually written in 3 different parts. So first Isaiah was probably written after Amos. And then Hosea, the book we're talking about today, that's actually the second complete writing. If we're looking at Isaiah as the 3 books as one complete writing, it really wasn't finished. I think third, true to Isaiah, or however you want to say that, would be sometime around like sometime during the Persian period. right? So that's almost a 400-year difference, three to 400-year difference there between first Isaiah and third Isaiah. But as far as complete works, Hosea would actually be the second complete work in the Tanakh. So Matthew, by the time he's reading this, we're talking about generously. I think the most generous estimates for Matthew put it like around 80, 75, 80, somewhere in there, because Mark's supposed to be the first, which would be right at the destruction of the temple, which was in 70 of the Common Era. And so then let's say, generously speaking, 5 to 10 years after that, we can say Matthew, because Matthew's clearly using Mark. So, 400 years, actually 700 years later, almost 800 years later. What am I saying? 800 years later, you get Matthew writing. And Matthew, because of so many mistakes that Matthew makes in other parts of the book, it's quite obvious that he doesn't speak ancient Hebrew. It's just clear. And so probably at this point, Matthew is just using the Septuagint, because the Septuagint had, I think, at least 5 known variations that were in circulation by the time Matthew's writing. So there wasn't even one Septuagint, right? It started out as just the Torah, and then they obviously wanted to finish out the rest of the Hebrew of the Hebrew Bible, so they ended up writing the rest of the Tanakh, translating it into Greek. And so Matthew was probably using one of the versions of the Septuagint. It may not have been a version that had the complete story in Hosea. Who knows what Matthew was working with? But Matthew chops this up really bad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He makes quite a few mistakes that are based on his reading of the Septuagint, because the Septuagint does things that a Greek person may not understand why they do it, or a Greek reading person may not understand why they do them that way. But these are things you would understand if you knew the Hebrew Bible. For example, in the Hebrew Bible, it uses the name Yahweh, it uses his name. But in the Septuagint, it replaces his name with the word Kyrios in the Greek, which is like a lord, or a word used for like lord or master. But in Matthew 22, Jesus, the author did not know this. So he makes the claim that Jesus was challenging the Pharisees on who Psalm 110 is about. He was making the claim that Psalm 110 is David speaking to the Messiah and calling the Messiah Lord. The Lord said to my Lord. If he had actually been able to read Hebrew, he would know that this says that it's Yahweh speaking to David, an oracle or an utterance of Yahweh to my master. And it's a psalm that's for David. But he didn't know that because he doesn't read Hebrew, he's reading Greek.
Well, we also get the incorrect virgin birth narrative because of the bad translation from Hebrew to Greek, right? Young maiden versus virgin. Now that one, just like the one you're reading today, those two, there is an issue with translation. However, the reason I don't find that to be a very good excuse is, as opposed to where I think it's pretty demonstrable that it's just an intentional interpolation, is because if you actually read the context, what the Matthew is saying, what the gospel authors are saying, even if they are quoting it right out of the Septuagint, whoever translated into the Septuagint either didn't pay attention to what they were doing, which is possible. It's possible they weren't really reading; they were just literally transposing the words with translation from one piece of paper to another, and not really focusing on what they were doing. That is possible, that they weren't really focusing on the context of the whole passage when they were doing it. And especially if these scribes were making multiple copies at some point, right? And we also know they had a lot of margin notes, and margin notes would then get included into the next copy because the next scribe wasn't sure if it should go, or maybe thought, hey, this margin note makes this sound a little bit better, so I'm going to just include it. And so there's a lot of different reasons why this happens, but it's obvious that if you just read the context of the oldest first, get the context, and then you read what the gospel authors say in the New Testament, it's like, no, that doesn't add up.
Mm-hmm. One of the biggest problems with the New Testament.
Well, that's why there's Jews and Christians still, right? Because if it was so clear cut, and if it was what the Christians were saying it was, then the Jews would literally, I could see maybe like an outlier, a very small little group of people trying to hold on to something, because this does happen within sects. But the fact that there are so many Jews who literally just reject these claims from Christians, Christianity, I'm going to be talking to a scholar And he's not a biblical scholar. I should be clear about that. But he's a really great guy. His name's Tavo Sanabria, and I really enjoy my conversations with him. And highly educated, very, very smart guy. He's come up with this CTS model, and I really respect the fact that he worked so hard on it. And he put a lot of data points into coming up with why is Christianity the most likely religion to be true, if any of them are, right? And I have to talk to him about it before I say too much, because I don't want to misrepresent him or his argument. But from what I saw of the CTS argument, it seems like we're just not taking into account the political and historical structure of the time. Why is Christianity such a popular religion? It has absolutely nothing to do with the efficacy of the claims. The truth is not what made this religion so popular. What made this religion so popular is that Rome was such a force, and then it spread through European empiricism and European colonization. And obviously the European influence is the whole Western world, right? The free world, they call it, is all based off of this European colonialism and stuff like that. And they, with that government, right, with that spread of political ideology and social ideology, they brought with them their religion. So the U.S. is considered by most people to be the most powerful country in the world, founded by Christians when they took it over from the natives, right? When they stole the land, I hate to say it, but that's just how it is. They conquered the land. They brought with them this religion, and then this religion developed. I mean, the violence that was being spread to non-believers, the forced conversions, even when people weren't doing it with physical violence, when you ostracize somebody, right, or you make an outgroup of somebody because they don't believe what you believe, you might as well be committing an act of violence in your own way.
Yeah.
There is no free will in coercion, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's no free will when it comes to coercion. Yeah.
What do you think I should open up the panel. I was kind of thinking we might do a shorter show today, depending on if anybody's going to join, just because I have done so much this week already and I've got such a big month ahead of me. Right. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to pin the link just in case anybody does want to come up. And while I do that, I want to ask a few questions to people who do come up specifically. But Johnny, since you're here right now, let me take this out of the way and get this link here. Tell me what your favorite failed prophecy to talk about is.
Oh, that's a good question. What is my favorite failed prophecy? I think Isaiah 7 is probably my favorite failed Jesus prophecy, because it's just so clearly not about Jesus. It's so clearly not about Jesus. It's so clearly not about anything to do with a virgin going where. Like, first, what's the context? Like, what's the context of Isaiah 7? Well, it's about two kings, Rezin and Pekah. Rezin is the king of Syria. Pekah is the son of Remaliah and the king of the northern kingdom of Israel. But these two kings are going up against King Ahaz, the king of Judah, and they attempt to besiege Jerusalem at the beginning of the chapter, but they fail to actually conquer it. So when Ahaz learns that these two kings are against him and his people, he's shaken, and his people are shaken. So God sends the prophet Isaiah to Ahaz to reassure his faith. And the reassuring of faith comes in the form of prophecies that are about the destruction of the kings. One of them is in verse 14 to 17. I have my Bible right here. I'll read exactly what it says. This is a good one. I like Isaiah 7. If I had to pick a prophecy that I'd have to go over forever, it'd be Isaiah 7. Let me get to it here. All right. It's the next page. It's the one of the prophecies about the king's destructions is in 14 to 17. It reads, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the young woman is with child and shall bear a son and shall name him Emmanuel. He shall eat curds and honey by the time he knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land before whose two kings you are in dread will be deserted. The Lord will bring on you and on your people and on your ancestral house such days as have not come since the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, the king of Assyria." The prophecy is that there is a young woman. The Hebrew says she's a young woman. That is, look, the young woman is pregnant. Goes on to say she's going to give birth to a son whose name will be Emmanuel. She'll name him Emmanuel. And by the time Emmanuel is old enough to know right from wrong, the two kings are going to be defeated by the king of Assyria. This was a prophecy about the Syrio-Ephraimite war.
Yeah, and that's actually, I mean, I would like to come up with a different one for my favorite just for variety, but I have to say that's actually probably my favorite as well. But I actually I do like the suffering servant one too, because it's actually, if you really read Second Isaiah, it's got a lot going for it as far as just a narrative. And when you understand the history of the period, and also the fact that it refers to Cyrus the Great as the Lord's Messiah,
Yeah,
is so just, I think that's so hilarious, to be honest with you.
they use the word Mashiach. So
Yeah, it absolutely does. It absolutely does call Cyrus the Great the Lord's Messiah. And so it's so strange how many Christians don't even know that. I've had that conversation with so many Christians. They're like, that the Bible doesn't call Cyrus the Great the Lord's Messiah. That's talking about Jesus. And I'm like, no, it's literally not. And then when you read on from 44 on through 53, you get the context of the suffering servant. You understand, oh, Jacob, my servant, oh, Israel, right? My servant. And you get the whole context of where the story is developing. When you study the history of the period, what's happening between Israel, Judah, and Assyria, and how that whole thing is playing out. You understand what the prophecy actually means, why it's relevant to the people at the time, and why it would be completely meaningless to talk to them about a person being born, virgin or not, 600 years later. Like literally, like that would do nothing for them given their current situation, right? The whole thing just falls apart on so many levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing is that the word hurrah especially tells you that this is a young woman who is already pregnant. She was already pregnant during the time of Isaiah. Mary was not pregnant for 700 years.
I see Missing Mod has popped into the chat. It's so good to see you, Missing Mod. Love what she does with her channel. Missing Mod, I tried to link your channel again. I had I don't know if I told you about this before, but when you know how it is when you try to link somebody's channel, you just put the @ symbol and maybe the first letter of their name or whatever, and then it brings up a list, especially of all the channels that you're subscribed to that start with that name. And you're the Missing Mod on YouTube, and like for some reason I cannot get it to come up. Even if I type your whole name @ the Missing Mod, it will not search for your name through YouTube. Even though I'm subscribed to your channel, I've watched a number of your videos, I've joined your panel once or twice, and yet for some reason it won't find you on a quick search. And I don't know if that's something that you're doing or something YouTube is doing to you, like you're just so controversial or something that they want to keep you off the algorithm or something. But I did try to link you. I do because I do honorable mentions to channels that I support in the description of my videos. And that list is getting pretty long, actually, but I'm happy to support all of you guys in your efforts because I think you all do such a great job. And she has a really diverse community on her channel. I've met a lot of great people through Missing Mod. B.S. Lewis is one of the people that I think I met through Missing Mod, or maybe it was the other way around. But I don't know, Missing Mod, you probably saw, I haven't got to watch it yet, but B.S. Lewis has released a new video. Pretty excited to check that out. I'm not going to play it on my channel here because I want B.S. Lewis to get the views, but definitely check out B.S. Lewis's channel. I was able to get his linked. I don't know what the issue is with your channel. But if anybody wants to join, nobody's jumping on right now. So I'm probably going to wind this down, really short one today. I'm happy to leave it open as long as people have something they want to offer, something of value. If somebody wants to try and challenge Johnny in his assessment of Matthew and Hosea, we could definitely let you guys get into that for a few minutes. But I did have a very long week, so I'm just as happy to shut it down and look forward to the next show. It's next Saturday with Andy. But Johnny, did you have any final thoughts you want to give on this particular prophecy or any upcoming things you want to talk about? I think we said we might do some contradictions next month. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, contradictions would be fun. There's a whole bunch of them. I think a few more would be great too. I think I could go over 3 more, maybe 2 or 3 more. Alternatively, we could do another failed prophecy. Just depends on what you want to do, because I could always get another failed prophecy. You know that. But
oh, absolutely. I'd like to. But let's I think just to kind of keep mixing it up a little bit, let's do contradictions, because I have lists of contradictions that I could go over, and I don't think I really gave too many last time because I was just letting you give the ones you wanted to give and talk about those. But yeah, I've got a list of contradictions, and so maybe I'll try to promote it in advance and see if some apologists want to try and harmonize some of that. I've heard some of the worst arguments for it. Speaking of worst arguments, I think I saw Jill pop up in the chat. Jill, it's always nice to see you around. Yeah, I've seen some really bad arguments trying to harmonize these contradictions, but so that might be a fun challenge next month, and then we'll do another failed prophecy to continue the series after that.
Also, obviously Rebuke says Emmanuel equals God is with us. You're correct. Yeah, that's literally the context of Isaiah 7, is that God is letting his people know that he's with them. That's why he asked. That's why he says the young woman's going to name her child Emmanuel, because the name Emmanuel, God with us, is important to the context of the prophecy, because that's what God is doing. He is showing his people that he's with them during this time of war.
And I'm trying to think of where, if anywhere, I don't think anywhere in the New Testament do they even call Jesus Emmanuel.
They say that once. They say that once in Matthew 1. They don't even call him that. They just remark on the name, meaning God with us. That's it.
Yeah, but I don't think. I'll have to do some research into that. I don't want to say the whole thing, but for some reason I feel like that's not even necessarily considered to be. Yeah. That might in and of itself might be an interpolation, but I might be wrong about that point. But even still, when Jesus is born, does anybody call him Emmanuel? After that, he shall be called. I don't feel for some reason I feel like they did not do that.
Yeah, they didn't. In Matthew 1 is the only instance where somebody actually calls him Emmanuel, as far as I'm aware. Let me actually go to it. I got a new Bible. I got a new Oxford Annotated Study Bible 5th edition now, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it says that the angel of the Lord says that they will call the son Emmanuel, but it doesn't say anybody actually does do that.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, and then in Matthew 1 it says, and then it says in Matthew 1, his terrible quotation says, "Look, the virgin shall conceive." Doesn't say that, and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel. It also doesn't say they shall name him. Even in the Septuagint, it doesn't say they shall name him. It says she shall name him. So that's another problem, is that the author Matthew also replaced a word. Though, to be fair, though, his manuscript could be different, because he could be reading a manuscript that's a little bit different, maybe a scribal mistake or something. So I can give that the benefit of the doubt, that maybe he thought it was they shall name him because of a scribal mistake, maybe. But it's just as likely that he did that on purpose. And then it says, which means God is with us. So yeah, that's the one time that they actually ever say, that's the one time they actually remark on the name being Emmanuel. That's it, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. So that doesn't even match up with the prophecy at that point.
Yeah, it doesn't. The prophecy says, "And she shall call him." The young woman
right.
shall call him.
Right. Exactly. And so it's there. That prophecy fails in multiple ways. That is insane. And Matthew, I hate to just think people are being nefarious. Try to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially when you're looking back in history, so far in history. Tough to say what their motives may or may not have been, because there could have been a lot of reasons, perfectly understandable reasons that these things happen. But it seems pretty clear that Matthew looked at Mark and just wanted to build on the story and then Judaize it.
Yeah. Rebuke said something incorrect. He says Matthew is directly quoting Isaiah 7:14. That's not true. Number one, he's reading the Greek Septuagint for Isaiah 7. So he's reading the Greek text for Isaiah 7, the Greek copy. And it's got some problems in it, because first it uses the word Parthenos. Now the word Parthenos is fine, because the word Parthenos can just mean a young woman or a virgin, so it can be either or. But even if you were actually just reading it in general and you read the whole context, you would know that it's a young woman. You would know that it's not a virgin. That'd be fine. But the author Matthew, especially, like he claims it's about a virgin because he doesn't understand what the word Parthenos means. Because the word Parthenos' semantic range is a little bit different during his time period versus when Isaiah 7 was written in the Greek, in the Septuagint. So his understanding of the word's different than what the people who wrote the Septuagint, what their understanding was. He has a different understanding of it than what they did. The other thing is, from what I understand, there is actually a mistranslation in the Septuagint that says shall conceive. So it's the young woman shall conceive. If I remember correctly, the Septuagint does have this error in it. I could be mistaken, but if I remember correctly, it does say shall conceive in the Septuagint, which is a problem because that's not what the Hebrew text say. But yeah, he's not directly quoting Isaiah 7:14 at all. He's quoting the Greek and possibly changing things as well.
I noticed that Jill is also saying in the chat that Jesus claims to be the great I am, which is actually not true. Jesus does not say I am the great I am.
Yeah, I don't think he ever. I can't recall a single instance where he actually says, "I am the great I am."
No, he never does. Not one time. Now, he does say in response to a question, I can't remember if it's to the Pharisees or during his trial, where he says, I am.
Yeah,
But it's response to a question, like as in, yes, I am. Like
yeah,
we say that all the time in common parlance, and not one of us is saying, yes, I am, meaning, oh, by the way, I'm claiming to be God. This is really bad apologetics, but I don't even get into the Trinity nonsense with the scriptures itself, because all that does is just point out contradictions, and apologists cannot accept contradictions. A's philosophy has cooked Jill on this a number of times. A's does a great job on his channel. A's is a Unitarian. And Unitarianism is the only defensible position because it doesn't violate the laws of logic. The modal argument, which is a pretty weak argument in a lot of ways, because again, Jesus is praying to the Father. So the modal argument doesn't make sense there. It falls apart when you do an exegesis, but it's more defensible than a Trinitarian argument because the Trinity violates the laws of logic. And I've actually had Jill admit, after trying to deny this, admit to me, as well as another Christian who I was arguing with about this on A's channel in the chat, that, well, I'm using man's logic, and you can't use man's logic to understand God, right? Which that is a concession, even though Jill and other apologists don't realize that. And I've had a number of Christians say that to me. Once I break down the law of identity, the law of non-contradiction, the law of the excluded middle, they can't get away from it. The Trinity, you cannot say there are three persons that make one God that have one essence and have it be three different people and one at the same time, one being. It literally breaks down, because the same thing is like saying people have an essence, right? They want to say we have a sin nature. It's called the essence of humanity or the nature of humanity, but we don't think we're all one person, right? We don't think we're all one essence. That one essence means we're all the same thing. So when you worship God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, you actually have three gods. That's just the way it is. And when you have to say, well, it's outside of man's logic, it's a concession that it violates the laws of logic, and therefore it becomes incoherent. The whole thing is just absolutely incoherent. And I've heard all of the great philosophers, Aquinas and everybody else, try to address this with being and essence and nature. None of it actually gets around the problem. When you have three persons, which every single Trinity model out of the Council of Nicaea admits that you have three persons, you have three beings. And if you have three persons, that by definition means you have three beings and you worship three beings. You can call those beings God, but you're making a linguistic error at that point. Mm-hmm. It's gods, plural, because you have beings, plural. That's just the way it is. That's the way the cookie crumbles. You cannot get around it. Of course, Christians won't admit that, the Trinitarians, because they're determined, because somebody told them in church, oh, no, this is one God, because worshiping multiple gods would make us polytheists, and we have to, concede that the Jews insisted on monotheism, and we are supposedly worshiping the Jewish Messiah, even though obviously we're doing this whole series to show how that falls apart. Jesus never did fulfill a single messianic prophecy, so he can't be the Jewish Messiah.
Yep, not one.
Not one. We're so far the count's at 0. I think this is the 6th show in this series, and he's 0 for 6 so far.
Also, everybody who might be watching, this is the problem with Christianity. Rebuke and reprove demonstrates the exact problem of Christianity. He says the question of words or the accuracy therein is irrelevant. There you have it, everybody. He's making the claim that the accuracy of what the author Matthew says in Matthew 1 regarding the virgin birth is irrelevant whether that's accurate or not. That's the problem with Christianity, everybody. They don't care whether it's accurate or not.
Exactly. No, that's a great point. Go ahead.
He also says he is claiming, the author Matthew is claiming Jesus typologically fulfills Isaiah 7. You will not find me the word typological anywhere in Matthew 1. You won't find it. It's not there. He's making the claim that he fulfilled a prophecy. You have to come up with the idea that's typology as your cope. There's nothing actually in the text that says that. So yeah, that's why I don't speak to Rebuke anymore, because he's just a liar, and I'm tired.
Yeah, I won't engage with him anymore other than a formal debate. That's why I said you have to do the formal debate if you want to talk about this stuff, because it's a complete waste of time to actually try to have a productive conversation, because he's going to hand wave away any evidence, and he's not the only person, and I don't. Jill, just to tell you, I've tried to give you as much credit and as much grace as I can talking about you with other people, because other people have been literally just throwing you under the bus. Your performance in our debate was so bad. You are getting just hammered for getting dog walk in that debate. And I've told people, I don't know if Jill is a liar because people are saying you're just so dishonest. And I says, maybe Jill has some kind of a cognitive, like a mental disability or something like that. And I don't want to make fun of people who have disabilities. And that's the best I could do for you. When you quit a debate, you can't win a debate that you quit. It doesn't work that way. When you say that you answered a question, but I never allowed your answer to materialize, that means you didn't answer the question. This is just absolute double speak, right? You're literally your P and not P. You're presenting at the same time. It doesn't work, brother. You've got to come up with some better arguments, or be humble at some point and say, you know what? I don't know. This is what I believe because, it makes me feel good. Or you could give personal testimonies like Jesus is in your heart or something like that. I would never say, no, he isn't, to any believer. I don't go down that road with people. I say, good for you if it makes you be a good person. I don't know, Jill, if you are a good person or not. I don't get into politics and other conversations with you, so I really don't know where you're at with that. But your dishonesty when it comes to presenting these things is not a good sign, just to say it like it is. And no, Jill, you did not win that debate. I haven't talked to a single person who thinks that you've won that debate other than yourself.
He literally got fried. It was so bad that he had, in the comments of his video, I was responding to him and I was saying how he just lied. Every single thing he said in the comments was a lie to me. Every single thing. He just lies. Revelation 21:8 says something about what happens to liars, by the way. I'm guessing Rebuke hasn't read Revelation 21. And he also makes the claim that Matthew was a Jew. Well, we don't know if the author of Matthew was a Jew. I agree that Matthew, the character in the book, was Jewish. We don't know if the author of the Gospel of Matthew was Jewish. We have no reason to think that Matthew actually wrote the Gospel of Matthew. No reason at all. The earliest manuscript we have for the Gospel of Matthew is unnamed. There's no name attribution to it at all. Not one bit. And if you actually look at what Eusebius says, he makes the claim that Papias makes the claim that Matthew, the real Matthew, wrote a manuscript in Aramaic, and that was a sayings gospel. We don't have that. We have Koine Greek manuscripts, the oldest one we have of which is completely unnamed. No name attached.
All of the gospels are unnamed.
Oh yeah, they're all unnamed. Yeah, the names come later. The earliest attribution of the gospels is by Irenaeus of Lyons in 185 CE, and his evidence is lacking.
Yeah, but I think even Irenaeus, when he says that, I believe, now I'd have to actually refresh myself on this because it's been a long time since I talked about this topic. But if I remember right, Irenaeus is actually citing Papias.
He is, yeah.
When he does that. And then he even talks, mostly when he talks about Papias, if I'm remembering correctly, he basically says Papias cannot be trusted or the Papias is wrong on everything. So if I'm thinking about the right people, and I believe I am, it's hilarious that the first attestation we get from Eusebius is to Papias, and he literally he just dogs Papias all over the place by having to correct him on everything.
Yeah, Eusebius makes the claim that Papias was a man of small intelligence, but he also makes a claim that he said this. And then you have Irenaeus of Lyons, who used this claim that Papias made to try to say that the Gospel of Matthew was written by Matthew. But he ignores the part where Papias says that it was an Aramaic manuscript written as a sayings gospel. Well, we don't have that. So his evidence is very lacking. We have no real reason to think that the authorship he attributes to them is actually correct. We have no reason to think that at all.
So I am remembering correctly. Well, that's good. My memory is not quite as bad as I thought it was. It's getting bad the older I get, and again, I don't spend much time looking into this stuff anymore. I studied it years ago, 2 decades ago, to be honest with you, is when I really studied this stuff in college. In fact, more than 2 decades. God, I can't believe how old I'm getting. But I've refreshed myself a little bit here and there along the way, and I do get into the scriptures every now and again to have conversations, but it has been a long time. I spend much more time looking at ancient history in the whole, or studying philosophy, things of this nature, science, stuff like that. But it is great to have these refreshers. Oh, someone has joined us here. So let's go ahead and let Chris join the conversation. And Jill, if you want to come up here and try to explain how you can win a debate that you quit, you're welcome to do that. I'm sure you've got a colorful story to share with that. I don't want to make you feel like you're just going to get, trashed without an opportunity to speak for yourself or defend yourself, because that wouldn't be fair to you. But Chris, nice to see you, family. Always. What do you have to say about any of this nonsense we're going over here?
Well, I think it's the Trinity like Bruja, I think we're talking about, right? Sorry, I just kind of jumped in.
Yeah. No, I just
So
stepped away to heat up my coffee. Yeah. We touched on the Trinity nonsense. Absolutely.
yeah, okay. Well, here's the at least in like the new quote unquote new age 90s like progressive Roman Catholic like explanation of this. There's basically the uh there's basically like the um basically there's the self, the church, and the basically the church as a whole, like worldwide, and or as the institution. And that's basically how it was explained to me, like like the meaning of in metaphor the Trinity, basically. So yeah, it's like I said, it's like the individual, the church, like your local church, and then there's the institution. So yeah, anyway, so I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but anyway, so
Yeah, so when Jill was talking about typology earlier, right? This is typological. It is metaphorical, so that it's iconographical, right?
yeah,
Iconography. So Jesus can represent the church. The Holy Spirit can represent the connection between God and the church, so that God could represent God Himself. But this doesn't get you a Trinity where you get one God. You know what I mean? These three things equal one God somehow. It doesn't make any sense. And all
yeah,
the scripture falls apart when you actually like break it down. The best you can get is a contradiction between John and the rest of the gospels. There's a couple passages in John where it kind of does allude to possibly being Jesus being divine, but most of it isn't. Even the majority of the gospels talks about Jesus literally just being the Son of God. He prays to God. He says, because of the power within me that God has granted to me, that I perform miracles, and so on and so forth. So this idea that Jesus is God is it just falls apart. And then, like I said, you get into the laws of logic, and that's what really blows it out of the water.
the Jesus part is God, is the like the the denomination from a Protestantism, right? Essentially, that it kind of came out
No,
from that.
no, Jesus is God. The divinity of Jesus actually comes out of the first council of Nicaea. The actual Nicene Creed, the very first council of Nicaea, they discussed the divinity of Jesus. The second council is where they talked about the Holy Spirit, where the Holy Spirit emanates from Jesus or emanates from God. And they
Yeah.
sorted that out.
Okay. Anyway, well, it's just like for me, it's so not exactly nonsense, but it's just like I don't sweat the details of what is like what's what. But it's true that like in a 2,000 years of essentially the religion existing, they people have killed people for less. Essentially, that's what I'm getting. And sorry, I just kind of got off from a anti the response to an anti LGBT Q plus rant from um, uh, Reverend Ed Trevors, and I don't know why it's just kind of popped into my YouTube thing. Although I'm technically subscribed, but I don't really like I don't like the fact that I'm an atheist and all that stuff. So yeah, but it's still those those changes that over time I found that Christians do not want to acknowledge that Christianity or even the other Abrahamic religions, although Judaism does do a certain job of a better, like a job of acknowledging that it is a living religion and it's constantly evolving religion. And one of the things that when I kind of come across um, conservative or even fundamentalist Christians, or even religion in general, let's just say, I basically quote a I basically quote a line from, ironically, from Star Wars. Well, a new part of Star Wars. That's from Star Wars Bad Batch. That's from a character that's called Saw Gerrera, and he basically says, basically, it's the interim between the transition between the Republic and the Empire, and basically the clones are stuck in between, and between that transition between like those that time period, basically. And basically he says the old ways are done. Well, and you either adapt or survive, or die with the past. The decision is yours. So yeah, it's I know it's really and apparently it's very triggering to conservative and fundamentalist when I kind of brought that quote up. So yeah. Anyway, that's my piece.
That's when it comes to the anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, it's really unfortunate, because not only are marginalized groups of people being harmed, and that's obviously the biggest issue, but the other issue with it is it's being based on something that's simply just not true. It's demonstrably false, and it feeds itself. You start raising children to believe that something is wrong, and you tell them that it's wrong because this invisible man in the sky who's watching everybody says it's wrong. If a child has no chance growing up to think anything differently. That's why I'm so amazed that people ever get out of this cult, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is that from a social sciences standpoint, the church is an institution, which means its basic product is an ideology or ideas, and which means that technically, at some point, if the doctrine / dogma does not reflect with the times, you'll find that fewer and fewer people will basically start worshiping it or practice it as patrons of said institution, just like a library or government or whatever you want to call. Let's pick your poison. And the thing is that at some point you'll just find a generation that will find that the antiquated dogma and doctrine will not be worth it. And that's when a religion or faith, or whatever you want to call it, a belief system, dies in just like not with a bang, but with a whimper. So yeah.
Somebody made a a comment the other day, and it was really very surreal, because I don't like to think too negatively about things. I try to look at the positive things and look for solutions. You got to identify the problems before you can even start to think about solutions. But once you've identified the problem, I like to focus on the solution. But somebody did say something that really struck me the other day, and I don't remember where the quote came from. Basically, somebody at one point in history said that we are 3 meals away from a revolution, right? And they said that at this point, it looks like we've already missed the first meal, right? Or we're missing three meals in a row away from a revolution. And at this point, we've missed the first meal. And it just goes to show that we definitely are heading in a definitive direction. You know, the politics are so divisive all over the world. It's not just in the Western countries. It's literally happening all over the world. There are two different ideologies, and they're both sides are doubling down, and the divide is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger instead of coming together. And it is problematic. Like, we do need to find a way to focus on solutions. And I don't know if it is possible to do that before the whole thing gets torn down and has to be rebuilt. The problem with tearing it down and rebuilding it, if I thought that we had a fairly organized group of people that had a viable system that they wanted to replace the broken system with, I might actually be in support of tearing it down. Unfortunately, because I do study history, what we have seen historically is every time the system gets torn down, it just gets replaced with something that's basically just a carbon copy of what they just tore down. They haven't fixed or addressed any of the issues, not economically, not socially, right? Not with geopolitically, none of it. I mean, it's so crazy. That's why, you know, maybe the only hope is if AI just takes over and just sits all the bad kids in the corner for a timeout and says, let the machines just, you know, just fix all this real quick.
Okay. Well, just let me ask you a question though. What, in your opinion, what are those quote unquote meals that we're basically being deprived of, or at least America, because like I said, I live in Canada. So yeah.
Well, I don't think it's allegorical in the sense that the meals represent a particular ideology. I think it's that literally physically, like if a group of people, like a nation, let's say in America, we were so poor, or we had lost a war so badly that the significant majority of Americans starved for 3 meals. You wouldn't starve to death by missing 3 meals in a row, right? If everybody went one day without food. But believe me, if every single person, or the significant majority of people, had to go a day without eating, people would like revolt. Like they'd start tearing down government walls. They'd start breaking into stores. Shit would go crazy.
I think it would be more like if we're going like through like French Revolution, through the annals of the French Revolution, I would say it would be a week, to be more precise, because you can go without like for what like 3 days at maximum, although on the third day that's where people get cranky and all that stuff. But I would say like a week. That's
I don't know
where
medically, I don't know if you can go a week without food. You need water within like 48 hours or less. I'm sure of that.
yeah.
But food itself, I mean, I don't know. First of all, there's a lot of conditions, comorbidities and stuff. But if we set all that aside and say all things being equal, and we didn't have to worry about like diabetes or anything like that, right? How long could a human being go without food if they had water? I don't think it's more than 3 days. I don't even know if it's that long.
Yeah.
Before the body shuts down, because the body will shut down for a period and then you'll die. You'll fall unconscious because you don't have any energy to stay awake, and then you'll die.
Yeah. But well, but that's a little bit what I'm kind of saying, is that the comfort zone is about like a week's the comfort for
Oh wow, I was way off. this says, just a quick Google search, that a human being, if they have water, can actually go 30 to 60 days without food. Holy
Yeah.
shit. I had no
Okay.
idea. That's insane.
Okay, but just what I mean is that the structures of civil society would be probably about a week, I think. But that's just my personal opinion, and I'm basically kind of shooting from the hip right now.
Well, you
So
referenced the French Revolution, which I'm much more well versed in ancient history than contemporary history. So I really don't know a lot about the French Revolution. I know it involved the French.
yeah, yeah, but it's basically it's like a cascade of problems, and with it started with a famine, and then it started with like representation with the well the singing, well, the not the singing system, but the representation of the church, the king, and then there's the peasants. But that's very like complicated because at that time, not like it's been like 300 years, like a 300-year gap before the quote unquote king's meet kind of happened. And what happened is that basically people started to think that, okay, this is antiquated. And after that, it's basically like a cascade of, okay, we're trying to fix stuff, but it's like escalation and escalation and escalation, one after the other. And after that, it was basically, uh, well, people are, throwing into the guillotine. And yeah, so sorry.
Yeah, it's what's known as the runaway effect. This is what, like,
Yeah,
with mass extinction events, it's not just one thing that happens. Like probably one of the most well-known ones is the extinction of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. And we all know about the asteroid that crashed into the Yucatan Peninsula, but that isn't actually the single event that caused the mass extinction of the dinosaurs, right? It was actually a series of events, which included obviously the asteroid crashing into the Yucatan Peninsula, but the volcanic eruption was a
yeah,
huge factor. And then what ended up happening is the food source died out. So between the fires, because of the energy and the impact from the asteroid, the global cooling that happened because the ice age set in because of the volcanic eruption, which blocked the sun from entering the atmosphere, hitting the earth, and so we go into an ice age. The food source dies out, and it's a combination of all these things that ultimately killed off all the dinosaurs. It wasn't just the asteroid itself.
yeah. But it's also the fact that up to a certain size, life to a certain size couldn't be sustained anymore, and that's why like us mammals survived, because we were basically at the time apparently like that small compared to dinosaurs that were basically humongous anyway. So yeah, but going back to the the cascade effect, um I'm not exactly sure like where we're at, but we're getting close to like, well, especially like looking from the United States, looking from the outside. Um, the problem is people are so comfortable, or try to have a sense of comfortability, as in war has never really really came to the United States of America.
No, I think the
And
only war that was fought on this soil was the Revolutionary War, right?
well,
The
it's
war against England. I mean, we
revolutionary
had like,
and the
we warred
Civil
with the
War.
American Indians, we warred with, Mexicans and stuff like that. But as far as actual like major wars, I think it was, I should say Native Americans we warred with, not Indians, but I think it was the Revolutionary War was the only major war that was fought on this soil.
Yeah, and the Civil War. But
Yeah, but that was you're right, the Civil War, but I'm not that's us fighting against ourselves, as far as like a
yeah,
foreign invader or a foreign source, like we've gone into so many countries. We're in another country right now. We're in actually a few different countries right now. We're always going over there to drop
yeah,
our bombs and stuff like that. Nobody's coming over here to do it, right?
yeah, and that's why Europe has such of a like history of like wars, either through ideologies, aka religion, or just like land grabs and any other shit. And as a kind of a rule of thumb, the only like it's one of the motivators of why I think like the European Union as a whole and or Europe uh, tries desperately to basically just cooperate and doing diplomacy instead of going to all out war is because war is basically came to them in numerous times so that they basically still have a living memory of like what war is.
Yeah.
And
Well, and they have so much the borders that they're exposed to,
yeah,
with that they share, I should say, with other countries, which puts them in a very difficult situation. Let me ask you, Chris, because I do find you to be really well informed when it comes to the political sphere and stuff like that. Do you think
I'm a
that?
dummy.
No, you're a lot smarter than I am when it comes to this stuff. I have no doubt about that. When it comes to the problems, do you think the problems are happening within the specific countries, not just America, but worldwide? Because America is certainly not the only country that's in trouble right now. We definitely are in trouble, but we're not the only one by far. Do you think the problems are happening more within the individual countries or on more of a geopolitical scale? Which do you think is more problematic, or are they both the same? It doesn't matter. You can't judge one over the other.
It's basically everything all at once.
Uh-huh.
Like it's the small things and it's the big things. And one to my eternal frustration is that like at least in North American politics, one of the things that I basically loathe the American people, or more specifically Reagan, is that if the mandate set by Jimmy Carter for sustainable, um, like a sustainable, well, not economy, but it's just like it's just I don't know, a sustainable energy, and that basically just kind of cascades into like self sufficiency to a certain degree, as in um, basically Jimmy Carter tried to move us to away from well, I say away from us as in basically doing the electric car, and also the fact that he put solar panels on top of the White House roof. And then basically Reagan came in, tore up that whole project of that. And I think that if the United States of America had stuck to that mandate, or either that he was in power or that the political not elites, but like the political apparatus would have said, "Okay, this is serious. We need to deal with this and long term, and got to stick to it." Um, my generation, actually, our generation, as in right now, we wouldn't have had like this bad of a issue with climate change, or like another cascading problems that comes with it. Because another thing is that, well, from what I, well, like not what I see, but well, anyhow, by my personal opinion, is that for now the Middle East is essentially emptying itself due to the fact that with like basically the immigration with people that are Muslims that are immigrating, is that basically they're running away from for a better life and stuff like that. And I'm not gonna go over the political and social like divides that entails with it, but it's just that essentially you have climate refugees essentially. That's what's happening, the beginnings of climate refugees, and that's where the people are fleeing and going somewhere else. And like like if you think about it for a minute, the UAE and basically all the Saudi Arabia and even Iran are basically scrambling economically to diversify, or else, because they've been on basically black gold for so long, or petrol, or gas. Like their wealth is essentially just built on gas, and the fact that is you like, in order to sustain a population, you need dams and desalination plants. You need electricity. You need many other things to put a sustain a population. And currently, within the Middle East, all those big places is basically artificial, or essentially artificially done. So essentially, what we're witnessing right now with the closing of the Hormuz is just the crisis from the 70s 2.0 all over again. So anyhow, that's how I see stuff. Anyway.
I think you touched on something earlier, and I think it's really important. I want to highlight Norway because I've actually been looking into Norway quite a bit since I did a video. I think that was last week. I talked about the problems with the prison system, and I highlighted countries that have very successful by having low recidivity rates, reoffenders, and Norway is at the top of the list of having the least amount of reoffenders, right? And they focus on rehabilitation. And in doing that, I was noticing a lot of other things that Norway has going for it. They rate very high on the happiness scale, low on crime, very low on, like I said, repeat offenders. When it comes to renewable energy, Norway's renewable share is 98.4%, making it the second in the world after Iceland. This is due to its near total reliance on hydropower, with wind power also contributing significantly. So finding ways to use the natural resources around you that don't involve burning fossil fuels keeps Norway out of being invested in getting involved in geopolitics. If America and the other Western countries are so worried about the Middle East and the power that they have, if they were to stop buying all this oil from them, they would stop funding all this war. Like literally just take their resources out from away from them, right? So it seems like by continuing to do business with them, we are not only funding them, and we think that's a problem. We should stop doing that. The other issue is an issue like the Strait of Hormuz wouldn't be an issue if we weren't so dependent on the oil that's coming through there, right? So, I mean, it seems like this is obvious. And since it's so obvious to somebody like myself, the government has to be aware of this. I mean, they know what they're doing, and they seem to have absolutely no interest in changing. They every time that somebody starts talking about climate change, they get shut down. They get vilified.
According to, I kind of got this news recently, and like I don't have a PDF file to show you, but apparently, like the climate change issue is essentially was around ever since JFK. So, and it wasn't really like a alarmist report, but it was basically like, hey, the climate is changing due to basically warming or something into that title or whatever. And yeah, so but the thing is that big institutions wants easy solutions. Like always, like sorry, go will always go for the easy solutions to to a problem. Um, that's what I think. And
Yeah, this says your memory is serving you pretty well because it says that it started to go public. The problems with publicly highlighting human-caused climate change in the late 80s. However, early scientific work laid the foundation in the 50s through the 70s, which would cover
yeah,
JFK time. Yep.
yep. And it's just the fact that the oil industry is so big and so prevalent in our society, and I mean like as a globe, that it just wouldn't want to it wouldn't want to uh just upend everything and just like want to squeeze as much money as they can from a resource, like until like there's nothing left, I think. And it's just the and it's just a shame because like I said, if we had like stuck to Jimmy Carter's mandate at the time, um like we would be in a better position, like you know in terms of a climate, um to what we are living right now in this timeline. However, the thing is that second and third world countries are waking up to that fact, and unlike the crash in the 70s, we now have solutions to the problem. And that's why most, like for example, apparently Pakistan is putting solar panel uh, generated power from rooftops, even though it comes from China, and just just power what they needed. And I think it's something that also what happens in South Africa and other places too. So it's basically, and also apparently to some not political scientists, but yes, half political scientists and half I would say subterfuge people that are delve into the intelligence community think that we're essentially in the early stage of a second Cold War, due to the fact that apparently it would either be China or they think that it will be the United States, but I think it would be the more the more uh, best way I could think about it is that it would be uh, Europe and probably South America. I don't know if what the verdicts yet, but it makes me think about the game Cyberpunk 2077,
Right.
which basically the de facto world currency is the Eurodollar, or eddies, as
Yeah,
they call it. Anyhow, I don't know if you want to. I don't want to cut you out, Johnny, if you have stuff to say. But yeah,
no, I'm just saying you're right. Yeah.
and yeah, and it's also that currently my government, or Mark Carney, what's going on, from what I understand, and I don't fully, like I said, I don't fully like see the big picture of what's going on. But the thing is that there's three in the globe right now. That there's three blocks. There's BRICS. I don't know if you know that term, or
Yeah.
one of you. Yeah, BRICS. There's the European Union, and then there's basically the Trans-Pacific, okay, TTP, I think, or whatever, the nations that cover like the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Sorry if I'm not really good with names. So there's three blocks. In this, Canada is trying to essentially do a liaison partnership with all three major blocks. And that is basically the European European Union. That's easy. But with BRICS, apparently we're doing this through Brazil, and the TTP. We're still a major part in it, exclude the United States, because Trump decided to just kind of exit. But it consists of Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and a couple of other countries. Sorry, you guys could probably look it up better right now, because right now I'm just kind of talking. But yeah, so the ones that are going to be left out is Africa, a little bit as always. But I don't know if there's going to be a major block within that continent too. So yeah,
Africa raises some tough issues. There's the humanitarian effort that I think is really important on a global scale. One of the problems with Africa, there have been a lot of nonprofit efforts to help build infrastructure in Africa.
yeah,
And I don't know enough about it to know if it has to do with willingness. I think a lot of it comes down to corruption, to be honest with you. But for whatever reason, the abilities to sustain the infrastructure, it just is not there on a large scale. Yes. And so it's kind of like, going in after a war, a lot of countries will go in to try to rebuild shit they've blown up, right? Because ultimately the civilians are the ones who are paying the price now, right? And so we did this with Germany, we did this with Japan. Even though they have to pay reparations, we still, after we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, we still sent people in to help, right? Medically, with doctors, rebuild infrastructure, stuff like that. I don't think we should be involved in dropping bombs on people at all. But if we are going to be dropping bombs on people, I think the very least we could do is to go in and help rebuild shit, right? That we've destroyed. And
try to tell that to Laos, Vietnam,
right. No, you're right. And so it seems like in a lot of those cases, like Japan, for example, they're thriving. Now their replacement rate, they're really concerned about, but economically, socially, right, Japan's doing very well. The rebuilding effort has been successful to that degree, right? But if in Africa, we just aren't getting long-term results. And it's either we have to, and I don't just mean we like the American people, I mean everybody, because it's been a global effort. Lots of countries have tried to help in Africa in various ways with a lot of humanitarian aid. And it's just not maintaining what's being done down there. And there's, again, so much corruption. I know that there have been schools, for example, that were built and then extremist groups would go in and destroy them, right?
Yep.
And so I don't know what the disconnect is there, because there's a saying that says, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if it's the implementation of this humanitarian aid. It's like just dropping off a bunch of bags of seeds and maybe getting them, some irrigation or something like that. And then everybody just leaves them to their own devices or something like that. And then the corruption takes over. People who are in power take advantage of those who are not in power, and nobody's there to stop them. I honestly don't know. I don't know what the problem is, but at some point you have to ask yourself, and it's not just Africa. This happens a lot of places. We see this in America on the streets with our homeless population. We helping people, because the help that we're giving them is not as effective as it needs to be. It's not really set up to be long term. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg, right? You got to figure out, why are people homeless in the first place? Why are people trying to intentionally use fentanyl? Well, who would do that to themselves? What sane person who's got something to live for want to use fentanyl for? Nobody would. It's, maybe the rare person who just wants to experiment with something, but these people who are using these seriously dangerous drugs are doing it because they don't see the value. They don't have hope. They don't have value in themselves. They don't have self-respect. And we gotta, instead of just throwing these people in jail as criminals, we gotta say, hey, how are you broken on the inside? Let's fix that. Let's give you something valuable to do. Let's find out what your skill sets are, and let's build you up and nurture you, and let's get you counseling. What happened to you when you were a child, or whatever it might be. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't have all the solutions. I just making observations.
I know that I've been essentially cut off. Well, not cut off, but just like been tailed off from A's from when I told about the USID situation. Essentially, the Exhibit A of essentially propagating harm by doing arbitrary budget cuts by Doge is the Ebola, the Ebola outbreak that's basically been going on in Central Africa / Congo and nearby area of countries. And the thing is that on a ideal timeline, we're late. Like, we caught it late. And guess who are not just and I'm not talking about food. I'm not talking about and I'm talking about personnel, medical trained medical personnel and stuff like that basically would have swooped in probably within the first week or so, and that would be USID, because that's what one of its functions. And then you would have coordinated with the WHO, and that it would have been basically not been newsworthy within a news cycle, probably one mention or two, but then again after that it'll be just kind of died out because it would have been newsworthy. Now, because we have because we have basically post-traumatic stress disorder from the COVID years, everybody is very nervous, and everybody's go to their scream and thinking, oh my God, we're not the enemy, but the malaise is coming to our shores, type of thing. And it's the same thing with the Tika virus. I think I said that right. And also there's another problem basically heading your way, with
Hanta.
not Hanta, but the flesh, worm, like there's basically a parasite worm disease that's kind of hiding in, not hiding, but kind of hitting Texas right now. And that's due to the life cycle of a certain fly, which essentially, as a reproductive cycle, eats rotten flesh, but it doesn't discriminate. So that's why a lot of like cattle and livestock are basically just the with the just with a minor wound, uh, if they barrel in that wound, it's basically not done, but it's just it'll cause a lot of problems. And yeah,
Yeah, Johnny, I
yeah.
want to actually take advantage of the
Sorry.
fact that you're here because you are much younger than I am, and
Yeah.
a bit younger than Chris is as well. And so, so much of what we're talking about is going to affect so much more of your life than our lives, because you're just going to be, hopefully, you'll live a very good long life, and you'll be alive, longer than we will. When I see young people engaging on the internet, and it could just be what I'm exposing myself to in the algorithm, I don't know, but I see a lot of young people who are going, because what Chris is talking about, he's highlighting, like when you mentioned COVID and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The problem is misinformation and distrust. And I see this coming a lot from religious groups. They're anti-vaxxers are the same people who are evolution deniers, right? And that mostly comes from religious groups.
Yep.
But I see that when I look at the internet and I see what's happening socially with you guys, I see a lot of people who are fighting for LGBTQ rights. I see a lot of people who are fighting for the transgender community and people's right to identify without discrimination. And I think anti-discriminatory stuff is very, very important. But I don't see a lot of younger people focusing on climate change and what needs to be the changes that need to be happening now, because it seems like a lot of these conversations are happening from people who are older. Right. And maybe, I don't know if that's just because we're more educated and more informed on that. And it's more of, we're looking long-term, because when you're younger, you tend not to look long-term as much. You're right. You're still kind of trying to figure out, how, where you're going in life. Whereas once you've lived 40 years, you realize that, yeah, I'm probably going to live for another 40 years. When you're young, you're going to, live young, die young kind of a mentality. Right. But once you've lived 40 years, you're like, yeah, I probably will live another 40 years. I better start thinking about the planet. What am I just not seeing enough because of the algorithm, or, is there just more of a focus on social issues rather than actual like climate issues and science and stuff like that? Or what am I seeing?
I don't know, to be honest. I wish more young people would focus on like climate stuff. I just don't know that much about it. That's why I don't speak on it, because I don't really know that much about climate change. I know some things, but I don't really know that much. But I'm not really that educated on it, so I wouldn't be able to do like a good topic on it or anything like that. But I wish more younger people would get into it, because it's important.
It is super important because, sorry, Chris, it is super important because if we start making the necessary changes now, this has to be a transitional process, because if we just snapped our fingers overnight and somehow all the fossil fuels evaporated magically, we would like go through a mass extinction event. People would just die by the millions, billions, probably, because the whole global economy is set up on burning fossil fuels. So this is changes that have to be implemented over time. And I don't see enough pressure from the young people who are going to be the ones who are going to suffer the most if we don't get this shit figured out, because I'll probably die before there's a mass migration into Canada from North America, right? From America. But eventually, with global warming, most of the southern states are going to migrate north, and that's going to force the northern states to push up into Canada, whether Canada wants us or not. It's kind of, some
Yeah.
people might go to places like Norway or Greenland and stuff like that, but the climate, we're going to have to get further and further away from the equator. That's just a demonstrable fact. And I will probably die before that really happens.
Now,
Maybe not, but you are probably going to live through that. And it could, you guys mentioned cyberpunk earlier. This is a real potential for the future if we don't start making the changes now.
yeah, it's scary, definitely. Now with that, I do have to go, so I would like to give a closing before I go.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Let me give you the floor. Tell everybody what you're doing, where to find you, and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, everyone, you can find me on my TikTok. I guess it'll be in the link. It'll be in the description with a link, I guess. You can also find me on my YouTube, which I also think will be in the description. I can't remember. But I'd like to thank everybody for watching. This was a fantastic conversation that we had. It was a fantastic discussion. I always like our discussions. I always look forward to these discussions that, on the first Sunday of every month. I think they're really fun. Now, make sure you all subscribe to Objective Ethics. Make sure you subscribe to him, and make sure you keep watching his channel, because he does a lot of really fun discussions and debates. It's really fun. So hope everyone has a good day, and I'll see y'all later. Bye, my friends.
Yeah, your description of your YouTube channel is definitely, it's linked into the your YouTube channel, I should say, is definitely linked into the description of this video. And I try to link you every time I put up a video these days, just as a permanent co-host. I really appreciate having you, even though we only do our one show a month. You're always welcome to come by. And I definitely want people to find you, subscribe to your YouTube, help you grow that platform. And then they can get your TikTok link from your YouTube channel description, I assume.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Happy to talk to you, Johnny, as always.
You too, Chris. Hope you have a good one. See y'all.
Yeah, he is a good kid. I like Johnny a lot. He's actually come a long way in the way he's formulating his arguments. I met him, I think it's been about a year since I've known him now. And he was just getting into textual criticism. And I'm really impressed. I've been watching a few of his TikTok debates, and he has really shored up not just his arguments, but his argumentation, meaning the presentation. And from the videos that I've seen, the debates I've seen him get into on his TikTok channel, and he's got those on his YouTube channel for people to look at, he does a really good job. He really is doing the right research. He's looking at the text critically. He's looking into the source material, the Hebrew, the Koine Greek. And so he's actually going to be, if he continues on this path, he'll be a really tough opponent in the next year or two. I mean, really tough. It's nice to see young people do that. I would like to see young people do more with some of these other issues we're talking about. I do. And again, I don't want to minimize defending marginalized communities, because that's extremely important. Very important.
I understand.
But this is a fight that we've been having. Discrimination is a fight that we've been having for thousands of years. And so we need to maintain that fight and be vigilant about that. But we also have to be able to have enough energy and time reserved for the planet and the future, because it affects everybody. Like, defending marginalized communities, we cannot provide them a good life that we're trying to do if there's no planet for them to live on. There's no fresh water for them to drink, no energy, no food. The climate's all messed up. Like, what are we doing for anybody, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to interrupt either you or Johnny at this time, but I'm not saying in general, but I think my generation has slowly given up hope of making changes to the world, because every single time that we've been trying to I'm a millennial, by the way. I'm 35 years old now. And basically every time that we've been trying desperately to, not as a Canadian, but at least within the American sphere of influence, we've basically been shot down, laughed at, and basically, oh, you're too young, pat on on the on the head, and it's just a repetition of those things that's been going on for about like 20 years or so. For me, when it comes to like climate action, when Al Gore basically did his his famous tour for climate change. I basically remember I was in like what, ninth grade, about 14 or 15 years old, and I looked at it, and I basically, well, his documentary anyway, and in science class, and I basically said, "Oh shit, I'm basically gonna live through this if they don't do, if they don't do this, you know." And also another documentary that's basically that radicalized me to that. And I'm not saying that I'm a perfect angel and all that stuff when it comes to climate change and all that stuff, is Who Killed the Electric Car. And that's basically where I base my sources of Jimmy Carter's initiative to have electric cars, and like I said, having a sustainable renewable technology initiative that could have basically gone through like I said, just like kind of having solutions and stuff like that. And there's also, I think, Simon Clark. There's another on YouTube that you can find. I think that's his name, Clark. Clark with an A. Um, y- you know, that you can basically find, and it basically gives you a timeline of like the EPA and all the stuff, and then it stops when when is in office and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to do propaganda for that, but it's just stuff that we need to think about. And other uh, the other thing that I was going to, well, talked about the basically the flesh worm, uh, uh, basically fly disease is like something that needs to be like paid careful attention. I don't know if I can try to find it like on short notice for you, but it's on Kurtz Kazat, like the channel Kurtz Kazat. It's a silence channel, and I think it's like the invisible war that's been going on in North America or something like that. I don't know, but I don't know the title, but yeah, it kind of explains you the history of essentially a pestis like a fly, a life cycle of a fly that basically has is in South America, is basically migrating to North America due to the climate change. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
this is the problem, is that if we don't deal with the elephant in the room, and all we do is we start just attacking these little problems, it's like, trying to you cover up a gopher hole, you're not going to get rid of the gophers, right? There's a million, they'll just pop their head out somewhere else, right?
yeah,
That's the issue here. These problems, the climate change affects all these other things. It puts people in a desperate situation, so they are going to be more likely to not be employed, not be economically viable, which makes them more likely to want to throw their life away on drugs and alcohol and whatever else. They're not going to want to be productive members of a society that is crashing the economy and is crashing the climate. Well, who would want to do that, right? What's our motivation long term? And when the government is being subsidized by special interest groups that are making billions and trillions of dollars by burning fossil fuels, the government is literally, almost powerless to stop them because they don't want to stop them because there's no money in stopping them, right? They just continue to perpetuate the same problem. When it comes to like this fly situation or viruses, because of evolution and because of climate change, this is never going to stop. And so the solution, the ultimate solution is you're not going to get rid of viruses. The solution is to stop the propaganda that causes people to distrust science, the anti-vaxxer I can't think of what the hell the word is I'm thinking of right now. What's it? It's when you put together a false political idea, propaganda, the propaganda for anti-vaxxers and stuff like that. So if you can vaccinate and you stay on top of things, right? If we focus on the climate, we could restrict climate change. It's going to cause other parasites to migrate, right? Then that's how you ultimately are most effective against these things. But if all you're doing is just trying to have one group over here that wants to say, oh, well, we should just, get rid of the, fight. They're fighting the wrong fight, in my opinion. And it's not to say that those fights aren't important, because we do need to stop like discrimination. We do need to stop like anti-science propaganda and stuff like that. Absolutely have to stop those things, but we have to motivate people with the real reason why we need to stop it. One of the things I want to fight for is smaller families and legalization of MAID in free countries. All free countries should have, all countries, in my opinion, should have MAID, in my opinion. And that's one of the solutions. The other solution is to have smaller families, to start looking at the global population, right? The more people we have, the more mouths we have to feed, the more problems we have, the bigger drain on resources, the more pollution, that kind of stuff. We got to stop the propaganda about, oh, we have to keep burning these fossil fuels. We actually have to invest in doing something about that, getting serious about it. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Sorry. In the private chat, StreamYard, I have the link of what I'm talking about. It's called How a Nuclear Fly Project protects you from flesh-eating parasites. Hello?
Yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna copy it into the chat right now on the YouTube side. Well, actually, I can do it right here.
Yeah.
Oh wait, that's the wrong chat. We go up here.
And see if I can probably get the Who Killed the Electric Car, although it's basically bootleg. Anyway,
but I do want to kind of wind it down, but I do want to just highlight one thing though, what I'm really, because I don't want to give people the wrong idea of like saying, oh, we shouldn't fight for marginalized communities or something like that, because I'm absolutely not saying that. I want to make sure that people understand that what I'm talking about is looking for solutions and motivating people to a ultimate end and focusing on the benefit. Because if I just tell people, hey, we shouldn't discriminate against people, that's wonderful and that's true. But what does that really, how does that change the long-term effect for global harmony, right? If we're just still trashing the planet. Right? If we could find long-term goals and long-term solutions, and also instead of just telling people what they shouldn't do, tell them what benefits there are to doing things differently. That's another thing that I think we have a problem with right now, is I see a lot of infighting between different groups of people pointing their finger at the other group, saying, you're doing it all wrong. You're doing it all wrong. But what I'm not seeing them do is say, hey, listen, here is, I see that link pop up. They're saying, hey, here's what you should be doing differently and why you should be doing it differently, how it's going to benefit you. Because ultimately, without having a sense of self and self-interest, people are just not motivated to do a lot of things for other people, because that's just the way that we work. It's part of evolution. You need to focus on your survival. The question is, how much do you put yourself over other people? And if we can help people to understand that if my neighbor is living his best life, right, truly living his best life, that's actually going to allow me to live my best life, because I don't have to worry about my neighbor feeling like he needs to steal from me, or the guy on the other side of the ocean feel like they need to come over and drop a bomb on me. You know what I mean? So selfishly, I can say, yeah, I'd love to have my neighbor living their best life. This is why I don't want to discriminate against people, because the ultimate goal is for all of us to be living our best life. I want to take care of the planet because that's going to help all of us live our best life. Our children and grandchildren are going to get to live their best life if we start taking this seriously. And if our kids and grandkids are living their best life, that's going to help us live our best life. We're going to feel great about the world that we're leaving to our kids, right?
Mm-hmm. And just before I also give you a link about who killed the electric car on a bootleg, but still, another thing that I would like to impress upon the audience is that there's basically a philosophy in First Nations, like generally, is that there's like there's different like ways to say it, but the most common uh, the most common I would say what they talk about is called the 7-generation mandate, or basically doctrine, which is basically the earth does not belong to you currently. It belongs to the future 7 generations down. And that means that you have to plan for not the lifestyle, but what I'm meaning, you have to secure a livable life for those 7 generations that will exist or that are yet to come. Excuse me. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm having a difficult time how this actually relates to the mindset of people. So I manage a company, small company, and they are so focused. My employees are so focused on the customers that are in front of their face. And they are forgetting the fact that that's only part of the job. That the second half of the job is getting the company, the business, ready for the next shift that's coming in, so they can focus on the customers in front of their face without having to get everything ready, right? And so instead of saying, okay, it's my shift, I'm going to get everything ready and I'm going to serve the customers that are in front of my face, that's their mindset. Instead of thinking about, hey, I'd like to just walk in the building and start helping the customers, and then at the end of my shift, I'm going to make sure that I replace everything, restock everything, get everything set up so that the next shift walking in can just focus on the customers at first. And then the end of their shift, they're finishing up by getting ready for the next day. And then they walk out the door. It's thinking about the next set of people. And this is the mindset that I see globally. Everybody's looking at what's right in front of their face. And they're like, I've got mine, screw everybody else. Right. And I see this with the wealthy people. They think, hey, you know what? Climate change isn't going to be a problem for me because I've got enough money that my kids and grandkids are going to be just fine. They can outlast the climate change problem, right? Because they'll be able to have air conditioning. They'll be able to pay high prices for food. They'll be able to have housing. I'm not going to worry about it. But that doesn't actually work, because when the masses of people who can't afford this, they are going to storm the gates and storm the castle walls at some point, right? And there's more of the poor people than there are of these wealthy people. And so it's not even going to work the way that the rich people think it is. However, instead of trying to educate people on the future, I see so much more effort being done by saying, let's just tax the rich people. And it's like, well, okay, but what, tax them for what? What are we doing with that tax money? Okay, we're taking the tax money from them. What next? Is that fixing the problem, or are we just putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg? You know what I mean? And it seems like that's what I'm frustrated with, is I see a lot of people identifying issues. And so they want to fight the issue up front that's in front of their face without offering solutions for the future, without really getting into the root of the problem so that it's no longer a problem in the future. They just want to deal with what's right in front of their face. And as a business manager and as a person who thinks about long-term consequences and long-term solutions, I get really frustrated because I don't think enough people are doing that. They're just not. And I think that something to be said for what you said, the generation that really had to face this on more of a on a big scale, a large scale, because it was getting into the media and governments were starting to talk about it, was really your generation, right? Going through the 80s and 90s. This is when it really started, like, oh, okay, hey, we need to start talking about electric cars and global warming and all this kind of stuff. And you guys took a lot of heat for it, right? You got a lot of heat for it. And so you get beat down enough, and at some point you're like, hey, this isn't working. And it's like I'm talking to a brick wall. And the definition of insanity is to keep banging your head into a wall a number of times and expect a different result, right? So I don't blame people for getting frustrated.
Yeah, it's well, at least in the American point of view, even though I'm Canadian again, sorry, I could tell that essentially 2008 was the crash. On top of that, we had to deal with the lie of Iraq and Iran. Well, sorry, Iraq and Afghanistan to a certain degree. And after that, we had to deal with the climate change that we will experience when we're going to be on old age. And then it's just basically cascading event after event after event. And I remember that 2016 was basically when Bernie Sanders basically promised to fix like our generation's like anxiety and problems that we're seeing in the future. Because I did the math with the congressional the government the government age for elections and stuff. Sorry, the eligibility to run for office, on the federal level. You have to be 25 to be in the House. You have to be 30 to be in the Senate, and you have to be 35 to be president. So, but however, you have right to vote when you're 18. So between 18 and 35, which is the age that I am right now, there is like a huge gap of where we cannot do anything but other than measly just try to protest and all that stuff, because we cannot, when it comes to the United States, you cannot go into power. So there's basically the haves and the have-nots of the younger generations because of that. And I find that appalling. In Canada, it's not actually how it works. As in, you only need to be in Canada. You only need to be 18 to basically be a member of Parliament. By tradition, people will probably won't let you to be the quote unquote party boss of the parties, or let alone prime minister. But the idea of the divide is not exactly as clean and cut. Like if you want, like one of the party leaders right now, Pierre Poilievre, who is part of the Conservative, who are technically I don't agree with him. I don't agree with his policy, and he's basically, frankly, just chasing the ghost of Justin Trudeau because I guess he's contrarian. Anyway, but the thing is that from 26 to 31, he was in he started his political career when he was 26, and at 31 he qualified for his let's say his member of parliament pension at 31. So, and they've made it a big stink about it. And some of the comedians kind of made a laugh at him. And he's technically still a politician at 30 something years old, but still, what I'm saying is that in the United States there is a barred age gap between when you're able to vote and when you are able to have power in Congress. Whether it be the president at 35, the Senate at 30, or the House at 25, and that's basically the last thing I'll say. And after that, where you can close the.
I'm just getting ready to shut down. Let me bring Robert up really quick. He just jumped in backstage. Robert, we were just giving final thoughts. So do you want to give an opening statement and final statement all at once? And then I'm going to close it down. Sorry, I don't mean to rush you, but we were just winding it down, and I'm pretty faded. I had a long weekend. Did you catch
you're mute, dude.
Did you catch the fundraiser show we did yesterday with Joe by chance?
I did not. My apologies. I realized my hard mic was muted, not my on the software. No, I didn't. I just actually finished up a stream of mine, and I figured I'd poke by here. But I only poked in because I thought that it was not an automated where you put the restream link up. It looked like that it had came up. So after you said good to see you, so then I was like, all right, well, I'll pop in there. But nothing really to say. Just to come by and say, hey, see how y'all are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had a great event. I'm just wiped out from it yesterday. We were on several hours, and I normally don't do multiple streams in a week because how busy I am with work. And yesterday I had an employee not show up, so I had to deal with that fire right before starting the stupid. It's not stupid, but right before starting the fundraiser. So I was really wiped out yesterday, and I also did a bonus stream on Wednesday. So this is my third one this week, but the fundraiser was very successful. Our goal was to try and hit $1,000, and we'd set aside, I think, 5 hours to try and hit that number. And we ended up hitting $1,000 in the first hour, decided to shut the stream down within the second hour because we were like 1,400. I can't remember what the final number was, but yeah, it was really successful. So I was really excited to be a part of that.
Good. Very good to hear. Yeah. I don't remember what's the date that he does that, the Ark Encounter. You know,
the Ark Encounter Protest. It's mid-July, and I think I want to say 14th, but I'm not sure. You have to check out Joe's channel. He's got the information there, and I do, of course, have a link to his channel in the description of this video. But it's mid-July. I know that. Right in the middle of the heat. Man, I can't believe those guys. That's really crazy. But it's a very important event, so I'm really glad to be a part of that, to support that event.
Good.
Have you been to one of those yet? Have you ever attended?
I have not. My wife says I'm a workaholic, but I have such a payload, especially in June and July. I'm so busy that I could never take a vacation anywhere around those months. It's just those months are hammer time all the way.
Well, yeah, my passport expired, so yay.
I'm in the same boat, Robert. I just don't have the time. And I'm so fortunate to be back to work after my medical problems, and I just need to take advantage because it's caused me to realize that you never know. You never know where your health's going to be. Anything could happen. So now that I'm healthy enough to get back to work, I owe my retirement fund a lot of money from hospital bills. So I just want to put that back while I can. Looking for the future,
Yep.
Sorry, I'm sighing for you. Because in a way, I'm sure if you were a Canadian citizen, that would have not happened to you. But that's just me.
Well, it happened because I had the money to pay for it. That's what I don't know how it is in Canada, but if I didn't have the money,
you don't need to worry about that much on that front. But anyway.
Oh yeah, then I'm definitely living in the wrong country because I was basically retired in my 40s, and
Ooh.
then I got just deathly ill. I was in the hospital almost of 2 years, stuck on the couch or in the hospital. My wife and I pulled a lot of money out to cover all those bills. And so now that I'm healthy, I get to just put it all back in there. But at least I'm fortunate to have work and to be able to make money. And I'm not complaining, like I'm so glad to be. It's crazy because perspective is everything. I'm so happy to go out the door and go to work because I can. All my employees are so miserable all the time, and I don't blame them because but I'm just so glad to be there.
Yeah.
That's good.
Anyway, so
All right.
thanks. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Robert.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks for having me, as always. And yeah, catch you later on the next one. Okay?
Always good to see you. Yeah, definitely look forward to hopefully you can make it Saturday. Speaking of extra streams, I'm doing a bonus show Saturday with Andy Hotland. We're going to be talking about the origins of the Yahweh God, the Asherah, Canaanite pantheon. We're going to get into some of the Ugaritic texts, and I really love that part, that ancient history stuff. And so I can't wait to talk to Andy. And then I've got a big show Sunday. I've got a large panel of people who have deconstructed, however you want to say it. We're talking about RTS, religious trauma syndrome. So next weekend's going to be a good weekend for the channel. Do you want to have a final word or anything before you head out, Robert?
Yeah, I'm Robert with Skeptic Philosophy. We do shows every Sunday. I don't want to advertise on yours because we overlap, but I have Godless Granny coming on next Sunday. She'll be on. That's it.
She is a neat lady. I actually got to meet her yesterday for the first time. She was one of the panel members who did the during the fundraiser. I really enjoy her show, her channel, because I don't have time to watch a lot of content, but from the videos of hers that I've seen, she has this, at least the videos I saw, this really great like deadpan kind of presentation. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's hard to figure out if she's actually trying to be funny or if she's just she's so shell shocked from the stupidity that she's talking to me, like this dumb shit that she's highlighting. And it's just like, she's like, I can't believe people are actually dumb enough to believe this stuff, and her presentation is so deadpan. It just makes me laugh so hard. I think she does a great job with her channel.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I know that when you're making videos, though, it's a little different, obviously, than your live streams. And I've seen her on some live streams. Obviously, it's a little different than the deadpan kind of, how could this possibly be the case? So I look forward to it. I think she'll be I've had a really good run of interviews as of late, so been very happy with that.
Yeah, she is an absolute sweetheart. She was definitely, like you said, during the live and stuff like that, just real humble, very humble lady, which you always get that impression from her video. And happy to plug her channel. And I did give her a shout out for, I think I linked her to this video just talking about her. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. She said she wanted me to come by her channel and talk to her sometime. I said I'd be honored to do that. I just gotta make the time to do it now.
But
all right. Well,
thanks for having me on.
Have a good show. Good to see you, brother. You're always welcome here. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much. I think as part of the outro, what I'd like to do is play that song one more time. Maybe will I do that? Nazarene did such an incredible job with the that song that she donated. What is that? Oh, no, I'm not going to pull that up right now. Okay. Well, I played at the beginning of this video. So just go ahead and go back to the beginning and watch that. Nazarene donated a song for the Ark Encounter Protest event that I'm talking about, the fundraiser called Hollowed Out Ark. So do be sure to subscribe to her channel. Deconverted Man put me in touch with that very talented young lady. Subscribe to Deconverted Man's channel. One of the things that we touched about, we did talk about failed prophecy, of course, at the beginning of this. We did talk a little bit about Christian apologetics with JonnyB and how a lot of this stuff just falls apart. Jill came through the comments. He didn't join the panel, which is probably for the best. I hate to say it, but he did get in the comments and try to push back a little bit, but wasn't able to come up with any good arguments. But I'm trying to think of what else happened. Then we got into a conversation with Chris and I. We kind of diverted talking about the current situation in politics and something I really try to focus a lot on, which is climate change and what we need to be doing about that. and also in offering solutions, not just fighting the problem that's in front of us, but motivating people to change, right? Not just making them change or pointing out what they're doing wrong, but focus on what they could be doing right, why it's a benefit to them, right? Remember, if your neighbor is living his best life, that's going to facilitate you living your best life, because you don't have to worry about your neighbor stealing from you, right? You don't have to worry about the people on the other side of the ocean bombing you if they're living their best life and you're living your best life. So we got to work towards that direction. And none of us can be living our best life. There can be no best future if we don't take care of the planet, right? And it starts now, because these changes, the real change takes time. And so if you want your children to have a better life, you better start taking this seriously. If you want your grandchildren to have a better life, you better start taking this seriously, because it's going to be at some point too late. And I hate to talk about, like, I don't like to sound like a doomsdayer, but if we don't start having smaller families to ease the burden on the resources that are limited here on this planet, if we don't start taking climate change seriously, and if we don't take things like MAID seriously, medical assistance in dying seriously, to give people an option to have a humane exit if they don't want to deal with the terrible situation that we are creating right now by not taking climate change seriously. Anti-vaxxer propaganda, anti-science propaganda. We need to start not just speaking out against this, but to show people how harmful this is for their own future and for their own benefit, for the benefit of their children, their grandchildren. We need to help them to understand that there is no evidence of any afterlife, so they better take this life seriously. This is the one shot we have, we know that we have, right? You cannot just say, well, it's God's plan, because you can't show me God and you can't show me the plan. And that's what we're doing with this series, is showing how these claims fall apart, right? But the goal is not to just vilify the religious people and say, look, I told you so. That doesn't get us anywhere, because what happens when we take away the religion, right? It creates a vacuum if we don't fill it with something. So let's build a community of humanists. Let's care about our interlocutors, care about the people we have disagreements with. And I'm not perfect. I fail. You know, I lose my temper. I lose my cool, my composure, whatever. I make mistakes, right? I make bad arguments, and I have to go back and do better research. So we can all do better. And that goes for myself as well. But if we don't focus on it, if we don't admit that, if we don't be humble and admit that we can do better and we should do better, and that doing better actually allows us to live a better life in the long run, that's the motivation for it, right? Just tricking everybody. Oh, I hope everybody thinks I'm a really smart guy. I hope everybody thinks I'm really successful. I hope everybody thinks I know what I'm talking, whatever. That doesn't really do anything long-term for me, because eventually people are going to figure out that I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about, and I make mistakes every time I open my mouth. And that's what's happening. All I've done is just pushed back a problem that's going to make my life worse. If I focus on being humble and say, okay, I need to learn to think critically. I need to accept correction, right? I need to accept when people say, hey, look, this is a bad argument, or you're just wrong here. Here's where the evidence is. Then I can make better decisions moving forward, and I can set a better example moving forward. And the people who admire me for the right reasons, right? And I can have self-respect. And that's what's most important. We all need self-respect, because it's a necessary precondition of living a good life. And we all want to live a good life. We cannot have self-respect if we don't know how to respect others. And if we know what respect is, and we know the value of respecting the planet. You guys have heard me say it a million times. So I'm going to go ahead and shut down the show. I just want to thank everybody for being here. It's really, I think we about hit 300 subs now, and I'm really grateful for that. The channel is just moving right along. Thank you very much.
Objective ethics is my game. I have a battle boat, it's my claim to fame. If I miss you, I'll take
30 through repeating, of course. That's better than I've done before. And Deacon Brennan, what do you do? Wait, objective ethics will be on your plate.